coconut shell.
Farmer's tan.
Nice paper. Nice paper. That's a heavy weight.
Yeah.
We haven't adopted it yet, so you're good.
I got some changes to that one.
Yeah. All right, so on the work session, we have, is there a Miss Ruth Ponder here? No.
No.
Miss Ruth Ponder, National Sales Rep for Payment Services Network. Once again, provided a proposal of web bill pay services. We'll talk about the personnel manual. George Sharp, I believe, is supposed to be in attendance, and then we're supposed to have on here a discussion of sending an officer to the police academy. So, where do you guys want to start?
Which officer?
Start from the top. So, John, are you able to talk about the web bill pay service?
Garcia?
Yes, what basically it is, now that we have some experience underneath our belt with web bill pay, some of those offers that we were analyzing before make a lot more sense. This one from Payment Services Network, PSN, it's, in my opinion, my estimation, it's middle of the road. It's not really different from what we have. The charges are about the same. And the reason I say that is that I have two other presentations queued up for you. Both of them by businesses closer to home here. And both of those sales representatives are telling me that they will provide us the same exact service that we have at no cost to the city and without raising the costs to our consumers, because both of those companies are willing to shoulder all the incidental costs. And if you'll give me just a second, I can give you some specific numbers. I don't know why this isn't working.
You know, you look at it, I'm pretty sure I can see.
It'll see our router, but it won't access the internet. I have no idea.
Oh,
And
you
then
log on to
freezes.
you log on to Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you log on to the Wi-Fi.
But then it'll freeze.
Okay, so I built a spreadsheet, and I went back since August of 18 when we started the service, and set a table up. And in August, the city paid 87.62% of the costs of the service. In September, we picked up 75.13%. In October, it was 72.26%. In November, 74%. In December, 79%. And in January, 77%. And then in February, in accordance with the new fee schedule that you guys approved, those costs fell dramatically. In February, the city covered 24%. In March, it was 20.72%. And of course, here we are in April, and the figures are meaningless right now because we don't have some of the other data that we need. So we've reduced the cost to the city by a half. We're still picking up 25% of the overall cost, so I think it's equitable to our citizenry. So if these other two businesses, you know, if they're willing to sign the agreement with us that they can provide the same level of service without increasing costs to our citizens and eliminating our costs, we'd be foolish not to hear them out.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing who are the other two.
I don't have their names at my fingertips. One of them's an outfit out of Shelton, and the other's a relatively new company. He works out of Seattle.
Any questions? How are we going to access Jeff Myers when it's time for that?
Oh, he's
Is it? Yeah. No, are you?
executive session starting
And
at,
he's going to call in.
no, he's gonna come.
Oh, he's showing up? Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay, next on the agenda, At the regular meeting of the Tenino City Council, March 12, 2019, this issue was tabled to enable a fuller discussion of the philosophical underpinnings of the document. At the root of the issue is one of at-will or just cause. The current employee handbook is firmly in the at-will camp, and that point of view was carried over into the proposed city official handbook. The difference between at-will and just cause is the difference inherent in an employment agreement, which is what, broadly speaking, the civil service regulations are. And not having such an agreement, in either case, the employment relationship is essentially an unwritten contract. The civil service regulations take the place of an employment agreement negotiated on an individual basis. This difference, however, is heavily mitigated by the fact that even when at will, employment in the public sector is heavily regulated. In many instances, the protections offered by many federal laws and state statutes provide protection to public sector employees not covered by the civil service regulations. The Americans with Disabilities Act, the Age Discrimination and Employment Act, and of course Title 7, 5, 6, 7 of the Civil Rights Act of 1974. Over and above this, however, the contractual nature of the at-will employment relationship is governed by the development of a large body of case law surrounding the fact that there is an obligation of good faith and fair dealing. What is required on the part of both the employer and the employee? The obligation of good faith and fair dealing is the reason employees, particularly public sector employees, should not fear the at-will environment. City Attorney Hughes, after reviewing these materials, cautions that the manual would need to be rewritten if the City Council intends any relationship other than at-will as defined by Washington state law. The revisions would necessarily encumber the city by effectively placing all city employees under the protection of the civil service regulations. So we've got the employee handbook, has employee manual essentially now, and a number of other kind of policies have all been put together. We've provided them to you guys to review. We don't need to decide on anything tonight. We don't need to really get into heavy debates, but what I'd like is if there are concerns, we did this, went around to the different employee environments. So, you know, John went and met with the police department, and after they had it, and they got to throw back concerns, thoughts, and things like that for us to chew on. I went and met with Public Works, and you know, Troy had some things highlighted that he had questions about, and we got to chew on that. So if there's anything in there at this point that the City Council has thoughts or concerns or questions about, you know, we've already got an email from Dave, but we would love to hear from him more. Please, now, let us know.
I guess spotlight's on me.
There you go. That's what happens when you come back from vacation.
Yeah, first thing right off the bat. So, I understand the state of Washington is an at-will state. And I guess part of what bothers me is just kind of the language in here. I mean, to me, I guess when we're looking at employees, something I believe is we try to train them. Something I've heard, a saying I've heard that I kind of like to follow is train your employees so they can leave if they want to, but treat them so well that they don't want to leave. And I think some of it's just language, the way the language is in here. For example, when we talk about the at-will employees, of course it's right up in the front someplace. And on page 1, 2. Here's the language. If the relationship is severed by the employer, it may be for a good reason, a bad reason, or no reason at all. To me, that's just kind of insulting to me. I mean, everybody knows they're at-will employees, but to say, oh, it may be for no reason at all, to me just doesn't set the tone I want to set for our employees. If I came here and I started reading this, and this is the first thing I saw on page 2 of this employee manual as I was given it, I just don't think that wording is good. I mean, to me personally, it's just kind of offensive. Beyond that, I believe that the city should follow the practice that's outlined in the back of the book here. There's basically it talks about progressive discipline, which I'm used to. It's not like the civil service rules, but before you fire somebody, you would think the first thing you do is say, hey, there's a problem you need to correct. The second thing is, okay, you're going to get a written notice that, you know, we've taught to you. The second thing you typically do is give them a written notice that, you know, this behavior is continuing or whatever the correct action needs to be. And then you have there should be nobody that somebody comes in the office and says today, hey, Ronna, you're out of here. I don't have to tell you anything. I just think that doesn't make sense to
But
me.
you can't do that.
Yes, you can.
You can't.
Well, that's what it says right
No, just because it says it's at will, it doesn't mean that they don't have property rights to the job.
Right.
So any government job is, if you work in government, it is your property. And the government cannot take your property without due process. So every employee is given the rights of this is constitutional stuff. You get a louder mill hearing. If your supervisor is planning on taking something from you, and that could just be a write-up where maybe it'll affect a promotion 10 years in the future. If any supervisor is going to put you in a position like that, they have to provide due process. You have to have a louder mill hearing. It's in there, and we could spell it out. We could spell it out better. But just because it's at will doesn't mean you can arbitrarily fire someone.
Well, then we should take that language out there and just say you're at will, and whatever that means.
Take this language.
That says your relationship can be severed by the employer. It may be for a good reason, a bad reason, or no reason at all. If there's no reason at all, what you're saying is not accurate.
Yeah.
You would have to have a reason.
In the definition of at-will employee in the state of Washington, what does it say? That. See, that's the whole thing. That's what it says.
This is lifted straight from.
That's the Washington State's language.
Then there's
It's not Wayne's a jerk and he's writing
I
mean things.
Well, so if that's the language, then here's my concern. Today, I might think that everybody, or that the mayor, or that all the staff is gonna do anything, but this document is gonna outlast us. A few years ago, when we had a mayor here, I wouldn't be so sure that he wouldn't read that and say, hey, screw you, you're out here today.
But that doesn't change the fact that the employees have rights.
Well, it may not, but that
And
doesn't
it
make sense.
it is basic constitutional law. It is just like, it's the same stuff that governs whether a cop can go straight into your house and start confiscating things. No, you have to have due process before the government can take your property. When you're a government employee, your job is your property.
I guess I don't get why they're doing that will relationship.
Maybe this will help a little bit. I think you're, and I'm maybe wrong, but I think you're equating public and private. In public, you have much greater protections.
I understand
In
that.
the private sector, if Rebecca decided tomorrow morning, John, you don't have a job anymore, I don't have a job. And it's that simple.
You don't have a lot of avenues.
Yeah.
Civil court is about the
Like I
only
said,
avenue.
Okay, what else?
My whole thing is just, I think we should follow where it says in the back, I can't remember what page it's on, but in the back it talks about written progressive discipline.
But that is. That's saying that if you're going to be disciplined, you have to follow that process. Just because it's at will, it doesn't mean that you can arbitrarily
Okay, well,
fire somebody.
I guess
If it's budget related, if it's we don't have to decide tonight. But that's maybe. Is there a way that we can self-reference that? That process
If you put it in there that says we'll follow the policy
as
of it,
outlined in
and
Appendix
progressive,
B or
or
something.
whatever it is. That was my thought. It's the law. I'm not arguing. That's not the law of the state of Washington. But like I said, I'm more worried about in the future if somebody comes in here that is just going to read that and say, whether it causes a lawsuit or whatever. To me, it should be clearly defined so we don't get in a situation where somebody just comes in and says, I'm going to fire you because here it says, I can fire you for no reason at all. And then we're in the middle of a lawsuit, which is not a good position to put us in. If we can help alleviate that by referencing, like you said, the progressive discipline policy.
Okay.
So, the other big one for me was the pay steps. It's been our history that people have got their step increases on a yearly basis on their anniversary date. The language in here basically says that the supervisor first has to approve the person getting their yearly step increase. At that point, it's recommended to the mayor. The mayor can choose to give them their step increase if they want to. And then it can also be based on if there's money in the budget. Well, step increases to me, there's kind of two ways that typically pay increases are given. One is just on a yearly basis, which typically happens in public service. The other is a merit-based system, where you have things you have to complete. So you start on year one, it says you have to complete these 3 things before you get to your next step. So that's what a merit-based system is. We have no system right now that's merit-based, at least that I've ever seen, that says, you know, public works are, you know, the office staff, when you come in here, this is your start here, you need to finish this class by this date, this class by this date, then you get your pay increase. And also, I've never heard of any public agency that says you don't get your step increase because there's not money in the budget, or the mayor can decide not to give it to you because there's not money in the budget. We budget for their pay when we do a budget. So my thing is that right now, at least, without a merit-based system in place, that people should get their step increases on their anniversary date.
So that's the exact, and you say that you haven't seen a system where they do it this way. This is the exact language that it has been for the last several years. And the practice has been anniversary dates, they get a step increase. That has been the practice since the city council did a pay step freeze in like 2011, 2012, 2013, and nobody got any raises for like 3 years. And then that was ended. And since then, it has been everybody on their anniversary date gets a step raise. And on that, I believe, like you're saying, that's the way it should be. It is not. There is no merit-based system we have here. We have some departments heads that want to do that. You know, we've had some that were like, well, I'd like to move. You know, like Public Works. Troy has brought it up. I'd like to make it to where, you know, they don't get their step increases unless they have completed this on year 1, unless they've completed this on year 2. And my response would be like, okay, well, put it together and show me what you want. Don't just come in and tell me what you want. Put it on paper, and then we'll talk about it. But I have only ever worked in an annual raise place, and that's the way I would prefer it, and that's the way that, you know, it gives a lot of latitude there. And so that's the way we do it, because that's the way I think that you guys want it done, and I think that's the way everybody's used to doing it.
But again, we may say it's okay now, but what happens when the next person comes in and they say, oh, I don't have to give anybody their step increase. It doesn't say that it's got to be based, the decision has to be based on anything. It's just at a random.
It's just on the anniversary date.
Yeah.
Every year on the anniversary date.
Right. And like I said, I'm all for doing a merit-based system, and we have outlined what the steps are, and you know, I think that's a good thing. But I think leaving it saying like.
I like the way we've done it with the police department, and I've told Troy to come up with a scenario where there is, you know, you've got your base pay, you get your annual raise, and then there are incentive or stipend bonuses. So if Troy wants, you know, people that work there to be cross-connection certified, then they get an extra $50 a month.
That's what they do a lot of times in the fire department.
You get training. Yeah, you get a premium for keeping this certification.
So my thing is, with absent all that, I prefer to take it to say your pay increases happen on your anniversary until we have some other system in place that provides clear direction on when those steps should occur and under what conditions. Like I said, this could be the document we have for the next 15 years. We don't know. I don't know how long we've had the last one.
It could also change next year.
And it could change next year.
And you gotta remember, no matter what we do today, we can change tomorrow. We can't tie the hands of the next administration.
I understand that, but somebody could change it.
They could change it too.
Yeah, that's right.
But they have to have the council, the
I
administration has to do
understand.
it.
Well, so all new council, all new administration, and they could change it any way they want.
So we can easily, the first thing that we talked about where it will like self-reflect, I think that's an easy change that doesn't like change anything, but maybe
it's not a rewrite.
Yeah, it's not a rewrite. It kind of, but how we do the pay raises is probably more of a philosophical shift, or maybe actually what you're suggesting would capture what we practice.
That's
But I would want guidance from all of you, but I mean, that is what we practice.
Well, during the regular meeting, I don't know if you plan on voting it or we're going to.
I don't care what you guys do.
I would make suggestions for.
You guys can vote on it, not vote on it. we can talk about it next meeting too. You guys can go have coffee individually with your constituents. However you guys want to skin the cat.
There's a couple of little things in here that I just wanted real quickly. It's not, these ones aren't too big. On the annual leave accrual, I think the language says after you accrue 40 hours, that they have to schedule 40 hours of leave. Then that, if you're working, you have 40 hours on the book that year, that the supervisor has to make sure that the employee has a 40-hour vacation. Typically what I've seen is, I think we have a 120-hour cap on leave accrual for annual leave.
Yeah.
Typically what I've seen is you can accrue leave before you have to take any until you reach that 120-hour cap. And the reason for me is you don't accrue that much sick leave vacation. So especially in a person's first year, or first couple of years where they're building up their sick leave bank, it's kind of nice to be able to have that cushion of 120 hours to start out with. If something happens to a family or you, at least you have those 120 hours. The way it is now, if you would accrue 40 hours in your first year, easily you would accrue 40 hours, so the next year you'd have to take 40 hours. So it would take a little bit of time to get clear up to 120 hours max. So in my experience in public service,
Are you following?
places like you accrue up to your maximum accrual before they force you to take any leave.
No, I'm trying to.
It'd take you about a year and a half to accrue 120 hours, so after that, you have to take.
So you want it all
It's
right
not a
now?
holiday.
No,
Like
you
when
don't
they
get it
start?
now, you just accrue it, you just don't have to take it until you get up to 120 hours. So it'd take you like a year and a half to get up to
He's not talking about sick
120
leave, he's talking
hours.
about holidays.
Because sick leave, you only accrue,
He's saying that if you don't.
it's 1 hour for every 40 hours you work in sick leave. So theoretically, somebody just starting out, it's not gonna have sick leave for a while, so if a family member gets sick, they have nothing, basically nothing in bank.
Yeah, but that doesn't provide you pay.
That's not paid.
FMLA time doesn't necessarily mean paid.
It's unpaid.
It's paid as long as you have sick leave, and then it's just saying, we will give you time without pay for as long as.
You won't lose your job, yeah.
So anyway, that is just a simple thing. It doesn't change anybody's rates or anything. I would just like to be able to see them accrue up to 120 hours before they're forced to take any time off versus only 40 hours and you're forced to take time off. So they have that cushion in the first year and a half if something comes up that they need.
I mean, they don't use or lose by this time, which
Yeah.
gives them more.
You don't think it's all that important?
Quicker, it gives them that bank of time quicker to, it's, shoot.
No, I'm not saying it's not
Somebody starting out
important, I'm just
especially
saying
is
that
not, having
we're not-
families, you have a sick.
No, I'm saying the
You
manual.
have no sick
I'm not
leave,
saying
you
it's
don't
not
get paid,
important.
basically.
I'm just saying we're
I
not
see what you're
cramming
saying
it down
now.
a throat.
Yeah. Back to the original one, with the employee, I just wanted to kind of touch on, the very first one where they can let go without any sort of reason. So you just have to really be careful how you word it though, because the employees have more rights than the employers. So that's kind of written in a way to kind of protect the employer as well. So if you hire somebody who's like amazing on paper, they start the position and they don't mesh well with anybody, you have a really hard time, that's not really a fireable offense. But if it's causing chaos in the workplace, this kind of helps the employer a little bit kind of have that leg up on this employee.
We do have a year of probation though for our employees that could be terminated for any reason. That's another part of
But
it.
if that kind of falls into that, be terminated for no
To me, it's
reason.
separate. I mean, to me, our probationary periods, like what I'm used to in the public
Maybe-
service, you can terminate in
maybe
that
on
case
that-
anytime for any reason.
Without
any.
Yeah, you don't get any of those protections.
But is that applying to that? Because maybe those two are one and the same.
Oh,
And maybe that could be reworded to during your probation, you can be let go without.
That part I think is spelled out in here, if I remember right. During the probation period, you can do that go in another place. I don't know exactly what page it's on, but I'm pretty sure it's in a year probationary period. And that can be extended, I think, even if you find problems with people and you're saying, hey, I'll give you a little more time, I'll give you 6 months, but you can extend their probation even for a period of time, I believe.
Flaj is still on probation.
Yeah.
Double secret.
I'm still on probation.
You just don't wanna change it too much to where
Yeah.
it kinda takes away from,
Well, and you make a good point, that, you represent the citizens first, so that, that lens is what you need to look at things through.
I just go back to a couple mayors ago when it was chaos,
It'd be
and,
nice to know why.
Yeah.
It'd be warned.
I mean, that's just
People are
fair
gonna
for
get
an
let go,
employee,
but,
you know?
I
And that
just-
also does not mean that if we had a budget crisis and somebody needed to be laid off, that's different than just firing somebody coming and saying, hey,
Yeah.
hey Joe, I don't want you, I'm done, you know?
Mhm.
And this is the first time they've heard it.
Mhm.
To me, nobody should somebody be fired and hear it for the first time when they say you're gone, you're out of here.
Right.
There should be a process. And I think most of the time, most people would do that, but
And they can always, even if it's in there, written in there, you get some dipwad as mayor, there's nothing that says they're gonna follow that. It's
They can still,
you
yeah.
could put that in whatever form you want. Whoever's sitting in the mayor's chair it can be erratic, they can be crazy, they can when they violate that is when the city gets in trouble, and it doesn't matter what you write in there with that person. So we're looking for, we're looking for best practices.
yeah.
What other suggestions?
I had one other thing, sorry.
That's all right. We've got
You're
lots of
doing your
time.
job, there's no
It's
need to
7 o'clock,
apologize.
why are you, yeah.
The last thing that, again, this one isn't a huge thing, but I think it's a good practice for our employees is, let me find it here, I'm trying to, I have them all highlighted here, so I missed it. I read through this thing like 5 times, so that's my,
I was just thinking the same
On the
thing,
beach.
she said, get a life, Dave.
Yeah,
So he's got paper candy.
paper cuts all over his hands, sweating.
trying to remember what it was. It says it right. Sorry. I should have marked all the pages that I had, thought I'd be able to just spot them real easy. One other little one I just remembered. On the language in here, if somebody's called back, they get 1 hour pay. So like somebody's off duty and there's something that comes up and they call you back in, it says in here that you get 1 hour pay. To me, that's pretty minimal. I mean, 1 hour pay. I'm kind of I work part-time and for the state and on basically the low end of the totem pole. When I get called in, I get 4 hours minimum, which I don't think we need to pay 4 hours. But for somebody to come in for, even if they're making $20 an hour, come in off their time and get paid for 1 hour, if they're only here for half an hour, they'll get 1 hour still. I think it should be at least 2 hours for anybody that gets called back in. You want to reward people for taking their time and coming back in an emergency. And 1 hour just seems like too little to me, and I think it should be at least 2 hours. That's mine. I'm used to 3 hours, but 3 or 4, but I think 2 hours is it.
Where are you working? I want that job.
Yeah, the place where that most applies is Public Works, and they are, they're available, they do like duty rotations, and they get called quite often, and, we have to be very careful in their time, because what they typically do is take comp time, and they accumulate comp time hours, I believe, at an overtime rate. So then, and we already have, there is no lack of comp time for these individuals, and it's kind of an issue that we are, we talk about and we're trying to work through, but we have a hard enough time getting their comp time burned. So the way that because they are like, they come and go a lot. So if you're on call for that weekend, they come and unlock the bathrooms, and it takes Jason 5 minutes to do that, and he doesn't mind. He's already in town. He runs in, or he's not available. He calls Ty. Ty comes in and unlocks the bathroom, or goes over and the sprinklers. The soccer team's playing and the sprinklers go off, and all the parents are freaking out, and I'm not paying attention at my house, so I can't go over and shut them off. And so when Ty comes in from just a mile away and shuts it off and goes back, and it's a 10-minute thing. And they do that a lot, And if we balloon that out, it's gonna be like an uncontrollable, if we're not careful, it will become an even more uncontrollable monster where they've just, you know, comp time is so, there's no way to even have a schedule. You know, when you've got unlimited amounts of comp time, and then, you know, so it's, there is a monster there that is like,
I guess that
barely
relates into the
contained.
last one, because that conversation just spurred the whole comp time versus pay. This, where I come from, you have the choice. You're always given the choice. You can pick overtime or comp time.
as do we.
We do. They can choose.
And Public Works does comp time. Police Department does overtime. It's just
They have
that's
a
the
choice.
culture. That is the culture of those organizations.
Well, here it says basically that you're going to get comp time, that you never, it doesn't even give you the option of having overtime for I mean, the police department has their own thing, but in here it says it's,
In this current manual?
in the current manual says that people will only be given time if they are willing to accept comp time, and then after that, the mayor has to look at it, and if he thinks it's worth the overtime, that he can give them the choice of getting overtime versus comp time.
if they
That's not what it says. It is not.
they can only accrue so much comp time too, and then it converts to overtime.
What we are trying to do, yes, so what we are trying to do is avoid the payment of overtime because it's an uncontrollable expense. So we want them to take comp time. If nobody wants to take comp time, and it is not a required thing, it's an executive decision whether to defer it or not. We're codifying it so that we can sit people down when they walk in the door and say, this is how our program works. If it's something that must be done and nobody's willing to take comp time, then we will pay overtime if the mayor tells us to do so.
Right? That's what it said.
That is what it says.
Right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say.
The head of any agency decides whether or not you can have comp time.
Right.
Yes,
We-
yeah,
we-
oh yes,
we
oh
can't-
yes.
we
Just
can't
came
have
up
it
with my
where-
job.
The employee has the unchecked ability to make unlimited amounts of overtime.
Well, it has to be at the direction of the mayor or somebody.
That's-
Well,
That's
they
what it
had-
says.
When I worked as a lieutenant governor, it was up to him how much comp
Whether they
time
work
I
it,
had. You know,
whether
I
they
mean,
work it.
Now, you're,
If you tell me, Dave, you need to come in and work tomorrow, this is my day off, you want, and the mayor says, in my experience, I can say, I want comp time for that, or I want overtime for it. It's not like, oh, you have to take comp time, I'm only gonna let you come in if you wanna take, it's up to the employee to decide whether they.
I don't
mean,
know if any salaried
It's not a
employees
salary, nobody here
Well-
are hourly employees,
that you don't, they're not salaried,
they're hourly.
they're hourly.
everybody but the
The
department heads.
department heads.
Well, we changed it last year, the police department they're on salary, but they are salary non-exempt, which is a giant pain in the rear end.
Yeah, well, it's,
Yeah.
That's the way
something-
it is.
That's the
that's
price
the way
of
it
doing
is in the
business, it is what
legislature,
it is.
salaried.
So the whole thing is, when you know, at least in my experience, we kind of have a history of what overtime is. So you're gonna know, oh, last year we spent X number of hours with our public works employees doing whether it's comp time or overtime. You budget for that. There's gonna be things that are come up outside the budget on occasion.
The Public Works hours, it is not something that we want to wade into. The way that they manage it, the way that it is a delicate balance that, you know, we would want to be very careful upsetting that balance. They like and they appreciate the way that they are able to have flexible hours. They're called in at all hours to fix sewer pumps and come in and turn off sprinklers and do, you know, all kinds of stuff. The way that it is set up, there are a lot of benefits to them, and they have a lot of flexibility. They can kick, you know, one of them's got a kid that has a Little League baseball game. They've always got hours that they can kick off and go to do those things. But they know that it might be on Sunday morning that they've got to come in and swap out a sewer pump. You know, so they accept it, and they like the way things are managed right now, and it is kind of delicate the way that it is done. If we upset too much of that, I don't know what'll happen. I don't know what, you know, I don't know, we gotta be careful.
Well, if I may, here's why we spent so much time. I mean, it's probably you guys think we belabor the point. But you are on the right track with respect to budgeting, right? Yes, we know there's going to be overtime, so some department heads account for it very well, some others don't. Those that do don't have a problem. Those that don't have a problem, because if you didn't budget for the overtime, you didn't schedule for the overtime, and you incur overtime, we are actually violating what you guys told us we could spend. And so the comp time is actually a relief valve to prevent that. So we budget the overtime, and whether you're at will or not, there is no law that regulates how many hours you can work in a week. The law regulates what you get paid for those hours. So if the city tells me I have to work 80 hours a week, I work 80 hours a week. And because I'm salary exempt, I get 80 hours a week and I get the same amount of pay. We don't do that with hourly employees. If they work 80 hours a week, 40 of it's regular time and 40 of it's time and a half. And if you don't budget for that, that's what Mayor Fournier is talking. Then now all of a sudden we have a $15,000 bill for, you know, we shut down for the snowstorm. I'm just using this as an excuse. But let's say we made them all come in and do nothing but drive snow plows for 4 days. There's a $15,000 bill that we didn't account for, that we didn't budget, that we spent without your authorization. And that's what Mayor Fournier is talking about. I mean, we do in some ways, but what we're trying to do with that document is tell the employees, look, we will treat you fairly, we will pay you fairly. We do things that are not required. For example, the on-call stuff. It's a very fine line, and I always get these backwards, so if I get them backwards, please give me the grace to go back and correct it. Whether it's engaged to be waiting or waiting to be engaged, it makes a difference. One is, for all intensive purposes, you're at work, but you don't come into work. The other is, you carry a phone around and you call in. There's no requirement for the city to pay anything for that requirement. We pay them 1 hour for every 4 hours. So whenever somebody's on call for a weekend, they actually get an 8-hour day's pay for that. Pay. They get 1 to 4.
We do well for our employees. That's not a bad scenario.
So your argument about this is, you know, this is who we're working with, I very much appreciate that. That indicates you have a lot of trust in it, and that's very appreciated. And you're absolutely right. We're trying to do in that document exactly what you said, is prevent a repeat of 2012, you know, due to a change of personalities. Our employees have the right to know what the rules are. In the new document, there are some brand spanking new rules that we need to put in front of our employees. Washington Paid Sick Leave and the Washington Family Medical Leave Act. Those are not in writing anywhere in this city right now, and we are remiss for not having it in writing. The other stuff is semantic. Some of the stuff you're talking about, it's legal language. There's nothing to be done about it. The reason the disclaimer is prominent and in your face that way is so that nobody can sit down and say, oh, I didn't know. That's the only reason that's in there. If you look at the body of employment case law right now, cities are getting raked over the coals because people are interpreting employee manuals that are not very well written in favor of the employee as they should be interpreted. And what we're trying to do is close those loopholes.
Okay, well, I'm okay with it as long, I mean, like I said, I'm not arguing that that's not state law, but if we can, in that case, reference the, you know, that kind of a loop helps me make it feel like that we're gonna do something to make sure employees aren't just caught off guard and somebody comes in someday and says,
no, that's not fair.
You can't stop that. I mean, like Dwayne said, somebody can do it and there will be consequences, but at least
this is their protection. This is their contract.
That is their protection. Then they can say, hey, we're you know, if I'm Jack Burnham and I have a young child and I'm standing by dutifully at home waiting to be called in, and there's no requirement for the city to pay me anything, but my city gives me 8 hours for that weekend, there's a reason to hang around. I mean, we can't give there's not a lot we can give our employees. So yes, where we have the opportunity, we bend for them. It's all above board. I mean, it's all been approved. You guys have approved this in the past. There's nothing wrong with it.
And the comp time thing, it is a cultural thing that is different. It's dramatically different between like police department, public works department, and it's just the way it is. You know, that is the culture of public works, that they all take comp time. It's probably something that the way that they indoctrinate each other when they go, well, this is how we do it here. This is how you sign up for this, and they've got a system that they like. If they were to all one day get together at coffee and say, no, we're not going to do that anymore, things wouldn't work here anymore. But that is, no, all of a sudden we'd have massive overtime bills, and we wouldn't be able to employ and use our public works employees like we do, and it would, things would come to a screeching halt. But we have a public works department that has a culture that has developed in such a way that it's kind of symbiotic with what the city needs.
And we go above and beyond some of that. Recently, we had a complaint about trash being dumped in an alleyway. The city could have said, not our problem, but that's not what we did. Public Works went out and removed this stuff because it was helpful to our citizens. And we can compensate them for that.
I think those are good.
Okay, so we can, we can take that back. We can make some light revisions like we suggested, and then bring it back at the next meeting, or you guys can make a motion. And what I would ask is, if you're going to make a motion tonight, we would be comfortable with the first the first statement you said, where you would like, where it says that where it defines at will, that it also is self-reflective to whatever Appendix 12, where it says what progressive discipline is. So just basically, you don't need to say we're going to follow our own policies, but that's what you want in there.
It'd be easier and smarter just to bring it back at the next meeting.
Okay. Okay. Are you guys all okay with that? Okay. So we will bring it back for approval. If everybody likes what they got, at the next meeting, we'll get you an advance copy via email. But we're talking about that first change. We're talking about taking another look at the way that it describes step increases. Beyond that, I would be very cautious about wading into some of the other stuff. But we can make some of the light changes. We'll bring it back, and if you've still got issues, make a motion and ask for votes. Does that work?
I would suggest, instead of sending the whole thing back, just send the revisions.
Okay.
Or you said it.
We'll do whatever's easiest.
Electronically.
Yeah.
Whatever you want. Give to you whatever you want.
Okay.
Page 15, paragraph 3, line
Did you,
2, blah, blah, blah.
Did you make those copies of that? Did George send you that?
They're in the creative district.
Okay, so next is Mr. George Sharp has been diligently guiding the Mayor's Creative District Task Force through the process of certification by the state of Washington in order to establish the Tenino Creative District as a certified creative district. For the purpose of obtaining funding through the Washington State Arts Commission, Councilmember Godovak has been attending task force meetings and desires to share the results of these efforts up to this point.
Well,
Linda, the floor is yours.
No,
Betty?
Oh,
just bring it up and look at them, and these are the things that we've been working on, or that, actually, the task force has been working on. I'm just the liaison. And we had a meeting last night, and there were some suggestions, and they were put into this document that's here. I guess it's here.
And Ed Salerno, believe it or not, some of the comments in this document, in fact, a lot of the comments in this document are from Ed Salerno. I mean, he really did a excellent
Yes, he's
job.
sharp.
Very sharp. Okay. The proposal is, we want you guys to take this document and read it and make any suggestions that you have for the creative district. Then there will be, another meeting, right, John?
Correct.
Another meeting, and we'll talk about the changes that you guys decided you wanted. And then after that, on May 7th, there's going to be an open house, and the Arts Commission is going to be here. And then after that, they'll bring the finished document for certification back to the council for your approval. And that's it. So it's in here, just if you could read it and make any suggestions that you have.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Any thoughts, questions, comments? Okay,
It's only taken a couple of years, but it's moving along.
yeah, they're doing a good job.
Linda, is this one that starts on page 138?
I don't know where it starts.
If you go,
It's down there. It's-
Yeah.
Yeah, once you're up. a
it's
little bit.
hyperlinked on the agenda.
Yeah, I
under-
clicked number 3 on it, so.
Yeah, and it is,
Just making sure it's the right.
starts out City of Tenino Creative District application information as of April 9th, 2018.
Okay.
And we're still on course for being the second jurisdiction
Is
to,
that right?
yeah, correct.
Yes, we are,
Good,
and,
good.
and he's a little bit behind, he said he promised the mayor he'd have it up and running in 3 months, and it's not gonna
So
be quite
sad.
3 months, but pretty close.
You know, George, he's kicking
Oh
himself.
my gosh.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
probably losing sleep at night. Okay, the next topic of discussion that it's under new business, but I want to talk about it first in the work session while we have time. Chief Swain requests Mayor Fournier be authorized to hire Reserve Officer Samantha Garcia in a temporary status pending the departure of Officer Craig Klumper. Officer Klumper, with full knowledge on the part of the city, has applied to the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency for employment. The agency performed a background investigation and has indicated that it intends to hire Officer Klumper, but has given him no date certain. To the best of their ability, they estimate that they will hire Officer Klumper within the next 4 to 5 months. The city has statutory authority to hire temporary employees, provide the city by the terms of the city's own policies. Paragraph 3.3, temporary employees, blah, 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 blah. If approved, the cost of temporary position would be charged to Program 521 of the city's 2019 budget. As the police department is currently executing police operations salaries and wages almost exactly as planned at the end of the fiscal year, the cost of the temporary officer would theoretically come from currently unobligated general funds. However, our experience over the last 3 years has been that we will have under-executed in other areas, such as the cost of temporary officer would in practical terms be offset, at least to a significant degree, by those under-executed budget line items. So Klumper is leaving in 4 to 5 months. The Basic Law Enforcement Academy takes about 5 months. We are asking that we be allowed to take a calculated risk. If Klumper does not leave, then we would have sent Sam through the academy, and there may not be a job for her at the end. She understands that, and she's still very happy about the opportunity. We want to do this now because Sam wants to stay here, and she is getting looked at by other agencies, and we think that she is a great fit for our community, and we love to keep her here. If we, and there are offsets, so we have to spend a lot of money hiring somebody, putting them through psychs, putting them through backgrounds, putting them through all kinds of processes. We've already done that with her. So we could, in theory, have her in an academy in 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yes.
And then we would be into kind of our busy months, and we wouldn't be down to just 2 officers when Klumper leaves. So it's a risk, it's a calculated risk. We think that we can handle it, and we would like to move forward with it. Do you have any comments?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Robert Swain, your Chief of Police. And what the Mayor said is absolutely all correct. I am asking for you to authorize us to hire Sam as an hourly waged employee. No benefits, nothing extra. She has that through the the National Guard, which she's a member of. She's a sergeant. And she is being honeymooned for a position with another agency right now. I'm afraid we're gonna lose her if we don't get her in here. And she's willing to sign a 3-year obligation to us that she's not gonna go anywhere if we put her through the academy and we give her a full-time position. So Sam has fit in very well. She's done very well in the community out here. She has used her Spanish language skills both with the school community as well as the community at large, and she's just been a real asset for us. So I'm asking for your help with this.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, thoughts?
I think it's a good idea. So it's, like you said, we've invested a lot of money in her already. It would be a shame to lose that and then have to bring somebody else through the whole process. So there's a little risk if we spend the money, but yeah, like I said, we usually underspend our budget a little bit, so hopefully we won't incur a big unexpected expense. So I think it's a good idea.
I agree with you, and especially since she's
Be
gonna
careful
sign
how
that
we say
affidavit
this.
too, so.
We're still in a work session.
3 years.
Careful how you say it.
Yeah, I'm on board with it.
Okay, well, this will be on the agenda, and we will be asking that you authorize the approval of hiring Reserve Officer Samantha Garcia for a period not to exceed 5 months. Is 5 months, is that the,
It's a retirement.
if we go over 5 months, what happens?
We gotta pay full benefits
Okay.
on that.
Okay, that was,
So
okay,
we just need to make sure we keep track of it. Goes out that long that we.
yeah,
I think a
yeah.
lot of places it's like one day they have to be off, and then they could. If we,
Yeah, because she's gonna be like 4.5 months into the academy, and then we're like, what do we do? You know.
So this, yeah.
Okay.
Just need to be careful.
Yeah.
Okay, so this will come up again on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our work session topics.
Unless you wanna go back over in the staff notes, there's Doug's report, the final report.
Go ahead. If you got pulled up.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the report section under staff,
I can't find anything to say.
Mr. Doug Ma has provided us with his final report. It's in there, it's titled Final Report, and
Creative.
and again, he does a wonderful job of wrapping up the most recent council retreat.
No, it's here on the packet.
Look what's in it.
Where-
Just keeps
Find it?
I think it depends on where you log in, how it shows up on the. Seems like.
You said it was under reports?
Correct.
Staff.
Staff reports.
So hit in.
Well, that's, for some reason, that one's not hyperlinked.
Yeah.
There it is, that's it right there. It just wasn't showing up on her.
So everybody else got these, both these?
Not showing up on ours.
Wait,
It's down on the very bottom.
it's.
Okay.
Mr. Washington.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
All right, keep going, John.
Thank you. I'd like to suggest that we allow this to be published to a wider audience. I think it speaks very highly of the dedication that this council has shown over the last 3 years in developing itself and developing plans that can actually be executed.
Our final report, you're saying.
Are you asking for,
No, I'm not
amendment to the agenda so that we can approve that?
What are we approving? We don't need, you don't, we don't, publishing, it's a public document. But he's, what, I think what John is saying is this is something,
Publicize it.
this is something that we should make sure that we put out there and make available and let people know that it's worth, it's something that you should all be proud of. We, you know, we put a lot of work into it. Will didn't show up because it was his birthday.
Well, it's something that the people of the city of Tenino should know that we are doing, that we are here and we're all working hard, trying to do the best for them.
Working hard.
Yes.
Okay. So we would put together a press release.
Yeah.
And we could hang this on the city website.
Right.
Maybe get a copy over to the Chamber of Commerce for their website.
Okay. So funny. He's clipping his fingernails.
It's like, oh, it's gonna explode.
Okay. All right.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, cool.
And we'll do it.
Do I have 3 minutes to go?
Yes, we'll take a short bathroom break for Linda.
Short for Linda, or?
Now it's official.
I went to the city's website and then
Okay. On local planning? Yep, in Lacey maybe?
I think it was just over here.
Okay.
Executive session.
So you can share with you.
Okay.
This guy. Longer, we always take longer, but I don't wanna stay half an hour and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
it takes 10 minutes.
Okay. 20 minutes.
Some app that's on there that I did 20 minutes.
Okay. And we can just do it
Ever since we
here
had
and
this.
last we'll step out on the porch.
Well, that'll expedite us, so that, we don't want people standing around.
Yeah.
No, it might be down at the bottom for you, that one.
Okay, cool.
She's like, oh,
Doing the Amazon shopping.
They advertise this as you turn it on, you hit the fly button, come up to the other side and stay.
Especially by the come back to it, so you can get
It's got all this stuff in there.
Yeah.
Little plane with it. It literally just comes up to here. I got a small one. Oh, this is no time to go. It's about $8, you know, right? So I figured I'd get it. So I learned how to fly. You go.
Even like I had one when they originally came out too, a small one like that. I get it this far up and down and I'd be crashing it.
Well, my first one, it cost me $100. It got to a point and said, goodbye.
Yeah.
It just kept going.
Where in Hawaii?
With the big Kona. It's nice. It's nice. Yeah. I want to go to another weekend to the Big Island twice. I still haven't really seen it, 'cause there's a lot of stuff to do there. But I want to go to one of the other islands, just to say I haven't been to any of the other ones, so. We have a friend that has, he's an economist, so he figures out how to do everything on the, the best.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the April 9th, 2019 Tenino City Council meeting. Let the record show that all city council members are present and accounted for. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have an agenda before us.
Move approval of agenda.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We have the minutes requiring
Move
approval.
approval. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes presented in the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We have 2 consent calendars. One consisting of March 27, 2019 through April 9, 2019. Payroll EFTs in the amount of $51,889.77. Claims checks 28119 through 28165 in the amount of $105,034.89 for a grand total of $156,924.66. Liquor and cannabis license applications for Tenino Farmers Market, Tenino IGA Market Fresh, the Herbal Center, and consent calendar consisting of March 13, 2019 through March 26, 2019. Payroll EFTs in the amount of $22,969.14. Claims checks number 28095 through 28118 in the amount of $46,477.36. For a grand total of $69,446.50. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve all consent calendars as presented. Is there any discussion? I also see a renewal for Group Delta 9 LLC.
The one we did last time was for the new processing facility. This is a renewal for the existing shop.
Okay, so liquor and cannabis license renewals for Tenino Farmers Market, Tenino IGA Market Fresh, the Herbal Center, and Group Delta 9 LLC. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to executive session. At this point, the council is going to reconvene an executive session, in which point we would ask the guests to please step outside. We'll take no longer than 20 minutes to discuss potential litigation with contracted attorney Jeff Myers.
Sorry, folks. I'm leaving.
Take a chair with you.
Welcome to have a seat on the veranda. At least it's a nice evening. I think so. Need me for anything else? Want me to keep counting? You can have a couple more on your bye.
No, this gives me the information I need right now.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm gonna get Donna and tell her it's time to go home.
Chief, you don't have to leave if you don't want to.
Oh, okay.
You're a trustee.
You'll enjoy this.
And learn about Public Records Act.
Hey, Donna. No.
You going that way?
Yeah.
Leslie. Come back. He'll be back.
Yeah.
You guys heading home? Oh, okay. Good seeing you. Alright, 5:34. John, you keeping track of the time? You got a big watch.
Yeah.
My name's Jeff Myers.